And Andy, how much of this now going forward is going to be a battle for maybe second or third? Netflix, at least in the U.S., does seem to have a pretty sizable lead. Is Disney number two? And is the battle now for third? Is the Disney moat maybe strong enough to hold on?
Yeah, there are these winners, and they're all kind of doing the same. And I think Jenny's point is getting crowded. Everybody knows it's getting crowded. But we see all these companies kind of in the same boat. Netflix, Disney Plus, both benefited a lot from what happened over the past year. Both seeing growth levels start to slow down a little bit, but at extremely high rates. And so for us, it's really about, trying to understand the overall consumer. And right now, what we see, contrary to some really big theses out there on Wall Street, is a lot of people think that the consumer is getting fatigued with all of these subscriptions. And our data at LikeFolio shows actually the opposite story, that people have gotten very used to paying these subscription fees, that they've gotten used to managing multiple services. The hardware has gotten much better to handle multiple services. You can search across platforms much easier now. And so I think that this is just, that leg of the cord cutting movement where a lot of people still have both, but you're kind of at the point where you're like, wait a minute, why do I have subscription fatigue with Netflix when really I don't think I've turned on the cable box in quite a while? And that's what I think the big risk is for those companies. So the way we see it right now is, like Kevin said, I think Netflix has tremendous pricing power. I think that Disney Plus still has tremendous pricing power. HBO has tremendous pricing power. And it's really all about, I think the big money is going to be made in this space from an investor standpoint, not in figuring out who wins between Netflix and HBO and Disney Plus, because they all help each other out in building this ecosystem. But instead, it's about figuring out who the little upstart's going to be that disrupts the whole thing, that comes with a new angle, that's fresh and new, and some sort of small cap in this space that can really take off. I think that's what we're going to be looking for in 2021, because it feels like the big guys are already established and in really good shape.
Andy, I think you're touching on something that is really important here, because the main topic of our discussion when we get to these names is always competition. But the competition, I don't think, is the risk here, because the competition in terms of these streamers versus legacy TV channels, they're killing the legacy TV channels. Is the risk, in your opinion, and I think you alluded to it, I just want to shine a little more light on it, is the risk to these companies and therefore their stocks, is the real risk that thing out there that we don't know about, right? The next innovation, because I think this innovation is killing the TV stations. They're winning that battle, but are we afraid of the next big thing hurting this group that we're talking about today?
Yeah, we are. I think we are. It's kind of like when Facebook was so big and so dominant, they were afraid of Instagram, or they were afraid of Snapchat, and they started to either purchase and acquire those companies or mimic them. I think Netflix is kind of in the same space. They're coming out with really short clip video stuff. They're trying a lot of different formats. I think that Netflix is best positioned to experiment because their users expect that a little more than the Disney or HBO users. And so I do think that that's the real risk, is a completely different format that no one saw coming, that these companies aren't ready for, or a completely different visual experience, like some sort of virtual reality, augmented reality, where now all of a sudden watching something on a flat screen isn't cool. But that's a ways away. And in the meantime, these companies have definitely built out a significant moat and are making consumers very happy with their service. They're not thinking about canceling, and they're really absorbing these price hikes really nicely, which is something kind of every subscription service company dreams of. So they're in a really good spot.
No, I think it's well said, and it's certainly something to keep our eyes out for, not only from a risk standpoint to these maybe kind of existing investments that many may have, but for new opportunities for new investments. So I'm sure we'll have more of those conversations going forward, Andy, as things come across your guys' kind of awareness. But my question to you is another risk maybe for a Netflix in particular, kind of a miscue on an execution standpoint. What I mean, for an example, would be kind of, giving into the urge to maybe add advertisements to the platform, to make it kind of almost an experience more like traditional legacy cable, which so many call for. Isn't the happiness so high for a Netflix because it disrupted this space and it made, on-demand TV viewership enjoyable?
Yeah, absolutely. That is true. It's also because their original content is very good. So another risk for the company is that they just put out bad stuff. And that has happened time and time again to every studio in history. So I think that's why Netflix tries to shoot 180 shots per year, like Kevin talked about, because they want to hit a few home runs. And so that's the deal there. On the advertiser side, we're seeing really good pickup for Roku's ad-supported video-on-demand service, the largest in the world, and people are still happy with the experience. So I think there is room for that. You just have to be really, really careful in how you do it. It'll be interesting to see which of these steps into that arena first. But I think for now, they're in such good shape. Probably the biggest risk to them is people going outside and enjoying their lives without staring at a screen. But I'm hopeful that happens this summer. But I think for these companies, they're just so powerful. They've got such a lead on everyone else that it's really hard to see anything disrupting them in a major way in the next 12 to 18 months. And the pricing power just gives them the ability to drop money to the bottom line anytime they need it.
Well said. And Andy, real quick before we let you go, in regards to that going outside and that feeling that I think so many of us had, that pent-up demand for things we used to do prior to the pandemic, Disney's got some exposure there. The parks reopening and things of that nature, is there demand there? Is there pent-up demand to go to Disney World?
Oh yeah, and even cruises. I mean, a lot of people talk about swearing off cruises, but things change once you see your neighbors go and have a good time and come back and talk about it. And that is a platform that Disney Plus, these Disney services, ESPN, they can push people towards that. Netflix doesn't have anything in real life right now that they can push people towards. So a leg up for Disney in that regard.